Hey, well, if you've been following the story of Justin, you'll know that she and her support companion Philoma are now back in Taliban. They're back home, and it was a disappointing um, result. It cost a great deal of money, courtesy of our very generous supporters, okay, who came through and continued to come through once the girls were down there. Now, you've got to understand that somewhere it can be lost in translation. So this is one of the downsides of being a foreigner here if you don't speak the language. If I look back now with any regret at all, it will be that I didn't start using the language or learning the language as soon as I got here. I always used, I'm guessing that it was a bit of an excuse now, but I always used to say, well, I don't know whether I should learn Tagalog or whether I should learn Visayan. Well, it's evident that I should have learned Visayan because that's what everybody else is speaking. Even Nanai is a Boholian from birth and has never really been off the island apart from going to Cebu. She speaks Tagalog to a degree, but it's not something that she's comfortable with. Beth, of course, has lived on and worked for many years on Cebu, and so her grasp and ability, fluency with Tagalog is much, much greater. But I think the choice between learning Visayan and Tagalog is, if you learn the Tagalog, then you would be able to listen to the media. You'd be able to watch movies which are all made in Tagalog, and in a way you would be much better informed in some ways. If you learn Visayan, you would be speaking the same language that everybody else is speaking around you. That's their first choice. Now, a lot of people, foreigners, don't understand why when I am in a group of Filipinos, mostly Filipinas because that's mostly what we have as students, because sad to say, the girls seem to have much more ambition than the boys. And when we were in the Red House up in the mountains, that was a very difficult walk to do first thing in the morning, and that would be when our hopeful students who were hopeful of getting onto our education program, that's when they would come and make their plea. It's all in Visayan, and what happens is that even though they know that you don't speak the language, they speak in Visayan. Well, it doesn't really take much understanding, does it? That's the language here. It's the foreigner's responsibility to learn the language. I know that this is a criticism that was leveled at many foreigners coming into America who didn't seem to want to learn English, especially if they were Spanish speaking, because Spanish was a second language that was spoken quite a lot in California because there are so many Mexican people there. But I'm getting off track. I didn't learn the language, and I regret doing that, or not doing it, okay? So when all kinds of stuff is going on around me, I don't know what's happening. Now, the English is good and well spoken. Gosh, if only I spoke Visayan as well as most people speak English. But it's limited, and because you have that Filipino phenomenon, which is the nosebleed, they always make this as an excuse to say, no, I can't speak English. When I try to speak English, I get a nosebleed. Not true, of course, it's just a figure of speech. So, when it comes to Visayan and speaking Visayan, I certainly get a heavy nosebleed. Well, Justin has come home, and initially it's a disappointment. We thought that she was going to be there maybe for 2 months. That stretched out when they started to talk about what's going to have to be done. It stretched out to 5 months, and that would have been quite a heavy commitment on our part, because we're not rich. We do what we can with what we have, in our charity, which is Terence and Birth Giving Hope, is very limited in funds, especially since the economy in America seems to be tanking or getting broke. So much of our funding, which is coming from America, is actually drying up. People are just not able to make the contributions that they would love to make. So it's regrettable. So what are we going to do now? Well, that was the reason that I really wanted to do this video, was that I can't give up on. It's a personal thing with me. I can't give up on Justine. She has to have that second part. Now let me explain, just in case, just to recap quickly. The cyst was on this side of the face. Now that thing has been growing on her face since she was born. And if you think, I know it's a horrible thought, but if you think that it is like a squid or an octopus, yes, the bulk of the body is on the surface and you can see that, but it has to hold on in some ways, so it literally is holding on like this, and the tendrils, or whatever you would call that, are going into the face. And what this has done is it's moved, it's made its own space in there. Don't forget, I'm not a surgeon, I'm not a doctor. I look and make my assessments and do it on a logical, what I think is a logical assessment. So that thing is there, it's got to make room for itself. So the bone structure that I can see is moved out slightly to make room for this parasite. Now, once it was removed, she had to wait for a year. She waited for a year to make sure that whatever they had to do in order to get that cyst off her face and make good the skin again, they took it in stages. So whenever it's any severe kind of ailment, deformity, disfigurement, it's going to take time. It doesn't just go in. It's not Hollywood. It's not one where she goes in and when they take the bandages off, everything is just perfect and she's heading out to fill out the application form for Miss Universe. It's not like that. It takes a series of delicate operations. Now, what I'm getting back, which is what I'm giving you, is that the first talk that I heard was that as the nose has also been pushed to the side, and that was something that they were going to straighten. So that's called rhinoplasty. And in order to realign that, they're going to have to do some work on that too, obviously. And they said that they were not going to do that in any of the initial 1 or 2 or who knows 3 operations. So there's some delicate work to be done, and the final diagnosis, the final talk was there's a risk, and they were not prepared to take the risk. So she's come home, and that is the decision that she has in her mind. As I said, I can't give up. I am the one that found Justine working in that little clothing store under Alturas, and it broke my heart to see that young kid suffering with that thing on her face. And from there we went and we did all that we needed to do. Beth did all of the contact work to the Tucci Foundation, who eventually paid the lion's share of having the cyst removed. So we worked in partnership with them, and they asked us to work in partnership with them for the second bout, which was to go to Manila. So, as I said, courtesy of our incredible heroes, subscribers, supporters, we were able to raise the money to go for them to go to Manila. Now she couldn't go on her own. She's 19 years old, but she's a young 19. She's an island girl, and she's lived here all her life and never travelled anywhere. We couldn't send her to Manila by herself. Plus, if she was going to spend any time in hospital, she would have to have someone there to support, in the same way that we had to work out with our students, who were incredible volunteers, when she had the cyst removed and was in Tagbilaran. Okay, so no need to stretch it out anymore. We got to find another way, and either I think that what will happen, I'm thinking of an ideal scene. Ideal scene would be that we got the funding to send her probably to America. Now there is such a group called Doctors Without Borders, and maybe we can get our case for Justine before them and see if anything can be done there. But I know that we'll be expected to find the money to get her there, so that's going to be our challenge, and we're going to have to support her while she's there. Now, if I think in my head of an ideal scene, this is if it was a perfect, fair world, what would happen would be that we would have the funding to send her there. And this is my thought, let's assume that as all of the celebrities in Hollywood are all having plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery, reconstructive surgery, having bones changed, and all kinds of incredible things. So the surgery is there, the standard is there to do this job. This is my feeling. Now, so let's assume that we could find someone who was prepared to do it and meet the hospital bills, like the Tucci Foundation have done so far, and we could send her to America, and the funding came in so that we could send her. My thought is that if she has to be there for 2 or 3 months, or who knows, maybe even 4 months, then what would be ideal, let's say it was LA, Los Angeles, that we could find a subscriber, a Philippine American couple who are living close to that area, close enough that they could take Justine to stay with them and support her during, whether financial or not. I mean, what would she be doing? She'd just be eating food, and she's about 35 kilos, so I don't see that as being a heavy hit for anybody. But she would need some support for going to the hospital and having somebody pick her up, and just arranging something on the basis of a humanitarian project. If there's anybody out there, get in touch with me. You can personal message me on Messenger, and you can talk to me about it. This is a lovely kid. Everybody who meets Justine adores her. She is so very brave, uncomplaining, and she's beautiful. So she deserves all the help that we can get for her. Please get in touch with me if you are able to even suggest something. If you have a contact or you have something to offer, I'm willing to talk, and and I will answer all inquiries. Thanks for being with me. Bye for now. God bless.